77, which is on pages 5, 78, and 79 of your two Bibles. And then also Luke 22:19, which is on page 1044. For Psalm 77. I cried out to God for help. I cried out to God to hear me. When I was in distress, I sought the Lord. At night, I stretched out untiring hands, and my soul refused to be comforted. I remembered you, O God, and I groaned. I mused, and my spirit grew faint. You kept my eyes from closing. I was too troubled to speak. I thought about former days, the years of long ago. I remembered my songs in the night. My heart mused, and my spirit inquired, will the Lord reject forever? Will he never show his favor again? Has his unfailing love vanished forever? Has his promise failed for all time? Has God forgotten to be merciful? Has he in anger withheld his compassion? Then I thought, to this I will appeal, the years of the right hand of the Most High. I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your miracles of long ago. I will meditate on all your works and consider all your mighty deeds. Your ways, O God, are holy. What God is so great as our God? You are the God who performs miracles. You display your power among the peoples. With your mighty arm, you redeemed your people, the descendants of Jacob and Joseph. The waters saw you, O God. The waters saw you and writhed. The very depths were convulsed. The clouds poured down water. The skies resounded with thunder. Your arrows flashed back and forth. Your thunder was heard in the whirlwind. Your lightning lit up the world, and the earth trembled and quaked. Your path led through the sea, your way through the mighty waters, though your footprints were not seen. You led your people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron. And Luke 22, verse 19. And he took bread, gave thanks, and broke it, and gave it to them, saying, this is my body given for you. Do this in remembrance of me.
Let's pray. Gracious God, take these words of yours and make them ours, that not only our lips, but our very heart may be centered in you, and by your word and spirit cause us to live for Jesus' sake. Amen. Do this in remembrance of me. Do this. When you take the bread, when you drink the cup, remember. How often do you take time to remember? When my brothers and sisters get together, usually we spend some time remembering. Remembering good times, remembering events of the past. Those are times that we remember. We focus on remembering. But I would dare say that most of us have a tendency to live in the present, and if not in the present, in the quickly coming future. We spend more time thinking about what lies in this coming week than what maybe we thought about in terms of what has happened in the past. I went through an interview this past week that focused to a certain extent, not a job interview, something related to pastoring. There were questions that were directed in my past and the significant events of my past. It took me just a minute to sort of think through. But remembering is a very, very powerful tool. Remembering is something that is built into God's working with His people. There is a factor of remembrance that continually is calling us to look back. To look back. I know that the Apostle Paul says, forgetting what lies behind and striving toward what lies ahead. And there is a certain aspect of that, which the Apostle Paul uses, which is true. When you're thinking about your own failures and not to let them slow you down or stop you to be able to move forward into what God has called you is a wonderful thing. However, there are times in our life when the discipline of remembering is incredibly important. And the psalmist raises that for us in the place that he finds himself, or she finds herself. And it is a time of difficulty. It is a time of challenge. It is a time of emptiness. It is a time of darkness. It is not a happy, rejoicing time. And the wonderful gift of the Psalms is that we are given a prayer language by which we are using to communicate to God a whole variety of different things. There are times when we fall into the trap of thinking, my prayers to God need to be really, really clean. Okay? All the good stuff, all the great stuff. We are to praise God, and that is certainly true. We are to think about the positive. And when we think about the negative, we better be very, very careful, because God is hearing what we say. Yeah, He hears everything we say, but you got to be careful how you talk to God, right? And the Psalms give us that language about how to address God in terms of where we are. And this person is not happy. This person is struggling with their faith. It is a time of distress. It is a time of having a really loud voice. This crying, we think of crying out. How often do you really cry out? I think it's more acceptable in our culture to cry out when we're angry. Oh, you did that again? That kind of thing. Then we cry out. But crying out in pain, crying out in hurt, crying out in loss, usually we're kind of quiet about that. Unless it just sort of hits you and it catches you by surprise. But this is a person who's been living it day after day after day. And he is doing what is appropriate. He is crying out to God. He is crying out for God to hear him. It doesn't feel like it. We know theologically that God hears everything we pray. But it sure doesn't feel like it. And maybe you're not in the middle of that particular situation now. But I dare say that each and every one of you have experienced in your life times when it seems that God has been vacant and He has not heard your cry for help. And sometimes we just sort of gloss over those times and we try to cover them up. And we try to put them aside. The problem is that those incidents have a tendency to shape the rest of our lives. in how we live. We don't quite trust God the way we used to. And we keep a little bit of distance because, when the chips are down, look what happened before. This is a person who is so intense in his or her pain that sleep has left them. It bothers them at night. Nighttime is sometimes the worst time because you don't have distractions. And your mind is left to work and churn away. And oh, how we long for sleep. But it's as if, the psalmist says, as if God is not letting me sleep. You kept my eyes from closing. I was too troubled even to speak. And it's not as if there haven't been good times. The psalmist says, I remember the times when nighttime was just a time of joy. I could sing myself to sleep. Times were good. I'm talking about remembrance in the middle of this pain. This person remembers God. I remembered you, O God, and I groaned. I groaned. Here is God who has blessed me in the past. And where are you now? In the middle of my pain, oh yeah. Where are you? Where are you? Those questions come out, those questions that we really feel uncomfortable asking. It's like, well, I'm supposed to have faith, so I may feel this way, but I dare not say it. Will the Lord reject me forever? Will He never show His favor again? Has His, and there's the contrast in what He's saying. Has His unfailing love vanished forever? You have on the one hand the unfailing love, and when you call the love unfailing, it's a contradiction in terms when you say it's vanished forever. Has His promise failed? And not failed for just now, but for all time. Has God forgotten to be merciful? Is He in anger with helpless compassion? See. You see, those times hurt. And maybe it's not necessarily the big things in life. Maybe it's some of the littler things in life. Because here's the deal. When we step back and when we are in this place of wondering where God's love and faithfulness is, it opens us up to being tempted to say, I'm just not going to trust God that far anymore. And this sort of takes out its expression in all different sorts of temptations. I don't trust God anymore, so I'm going to lean a little bit more heavily on myself and my abilities to do things. And so I'm going to trust me to accomplish this place of safety for me. I'm going to trust me to provide the pleasure that I need out of life. I'm going to trust me to accomplish what I would like to have in terms of this life. And I dare say that if you look at the temptations that you are struggling with, part of its root could be tied to this lack of trust of God, because somewhere along the line it feels like He has failed you. This psalm speaks to all of us. And he comes to this place of asking these questions, and then there is this Selah. Take a break. Then I thought, to this I will appeal, the years of the right hand of the Most High. I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your miracles of long ago. I will meditate on all your works and consider all your mighty deeds. In some particular way, this person is able to step back from his own problems and take a look at the larger picture and the history of God's working with his people. I want to think about all that God has done. And he or she is filling their mind with those deeds of the Lord. What has God done? What has God done? Remember those things. I will remember your miracles of long ago. Meditate on all your works. Meditating, that's the tough spot. How many of you have actually tried to sit down and meditate? If you do it at night in bed, it's a sure way of falling asleep. Because you don't intend to sleep. It just, that your mind gets, and away you go. Or the distractions that come in so fast and furious when you meditate. It is hard to focus your mind. It's really the devil's tool with trying to meditate. It's this little thing. For many of us, it just distracts us, right? Oh, there's a ding. I better check that email. No, I'm thinking about the deeds of the Lord. Oh, there's an alarm on my calendar. I better pay attention. Oh, there's this. Oh, there's that. Oh, I better check on this. Oh, I better look at that. How quickly our minds stray. And yet, the life that this psalm is calling us to is to remember and to focus. Because this is the God of redemption. With your mighty arm you redeemed your people. You bought back your people. And then comes this wonderful passage about nature. I love that imagery. The waters saw you and writhed. The very depths were convulsed. When God comes in power with his people, when he came to save them, obviously this is pulling out of the Exodus story, right? Because he talks about Moses and Aaron at the end. It's like God came down and worked so powerfully. That event was the transforming event for the people of the Old Testament. They were called to continually look back and remember that event. How God, in his mercy, passed over them because of the lamb that had been slain and the blood that had been posted, so that they were saved when the Egyptians were not. The story of redemption. Remember that. And in remembering that, one also remembers that the reason that God came to redeem them is that they were in serious trouble. And they were going through a very, very painful part of their life as a nation. They were under attack and they were about to be destroyed. And they were wondering where God was, and they were crying out to God. And they were crying out to God not for a matter of minutes, not for a matter of hours, not for a matter of days, not for a matter of weeks or months. They were crying out to God for years. And they continued to cry out to God till he sent Moses and Aaron. Waiting for God is not easy, but God does come. And so we come to the table. And what Christ has commanded us to do is to do this remembering Him. In a very powerful, concrete way, with something that we can touch and taste, with something that nourishes, with something that strengthens. I say something, but we all know it is someone, right? So that in the distresses of our life, He calls us to remember. Remember this. Remember this. Because life is messy now. Life is broken because of sin and its effects. Life is not fair. Life doesn't pencil out in terms of the good get good and the evil get evil. If we all got what we deserved, we would be in hell. Oh. 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 And in this salvation that God has provided for us, in the struggle that we have against a world full of evil, in the unfairness of life, until God makes it right again, God calls us to remember that here at His table, we remember that He suffered. Compare your suffering to His. And if you're like me, you're thinking about the Son's suffering, right? Yes. But you also have to remember the Father's suffering, who sent His Son to suffer. Now, you who are fathers, that's harder than going yourself, right? To send your sons and daughters to suffer. Who would dare do that? This is the measure of His love. This is the cost that our sins have caused. In the mess in which we find ourselves, in the struggles of this life, in the painful situations you have been through, He calls us to faith. That here we are grounded. Here we take our stand. Here we become a part of Him and a part of something much larger than ourselves. And in this suffering there is meaning. And in this suffering there is hope. And in this suffering there is redemption. Because you see, in the psalm, it doesn't end on a high note, does it? It doesn't say, and then God delivered me. Go back and check the psalm. I mean, it ends good and strong. You led your people with the hand of Moses and Aaron, you know? But it doesn't say, and then I was healed, or and then my situation became better, and then everything was wonderful. It doesn't say that. The psalmist is still waiting. The psalmist is waiting in hope because he has reflected on God's great power to redeem and that saving act that the slain lamb had done for His people. So when we come to the table in just a little bit, I will call you to remember and to believe. Because in the remembering, you believe that this is how great God's love is for you. And that He gave everything. He will make it right. Remember and believe. Let's pray. Gracious God, prepare our hearts as we come to this table. Prepare our minds that we may understand. Prepare our wills that we may follow. Prepare us, Lord, to receive you. For Jesus' sake.